The Shine on CX Show with Claire Boscq, illuminating the path to exceptional customer service.
Welcome to the Shine on CX Show. I'm Claire Boscq and I'm thrilled to be bringing you insight, stories and strategy that will illuminate the path to exceptional customer experience. Whether you're a CX pro, a business owner, a CEO, or just passionate about creating amazing customer journeys, this show is your go-to resource. We'll be diving into real-world example, expert advice, and the latest trend to help you boost your business and truly shine by elevating your customer experience. So let's get started. Good morning and welcome to the Shine on CX Show. And today my guest is the beautiful Cassidy Mason. Hello there.
Hi Claire.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very good. How are you?
It's lovely to see you here. We met a couple of months ago, wasn't it? And I was like, oh yes, sparkles. What about this? And what about this? And what about that?
I know, it was one of those sort of, oh gosh, was that the time?
So Cassidy, just for our audience, tell us what do you do and why are you here on this Shine on CX show?
Yes, so what I do now is I have my own consultancy in Jersey, but that's sort of come off the back of quite a journey over the last 15 years or so. Originally starting in hospitality, like yourself, and many events and restaurants. Then a sort of very rather strange curveball of an intense procurement training placement in the UK for 3 months. And then came back, and then since then I've been in sales, e-commerce, platform development, and then culminating in actually working for Groupon for many years in the UK and in Australia, and working in their sales strategy department. And that's really where I found my love of sales strategy, and I didn't actually even know that was a job until I got it. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is my dream job. And it sort of developed from there. And I became really passionate about, really understanding how sales can be more strategic and work better for the customer, and really put the customer at the center of it. And when I was out in Sydney, my journey in Groupon culminated in me running the strategy team for Australia and New Zealand, and together we created a whole new approach to sales and a new sales strategy, which actually increased the revenue 40% year on year. And it all about putting the customer at the center of the sales and really understanding the customer. So that's sort of what ended up taking me into my consultancy, is just being really passionate about that. And that's been going for, well, actually 5 years, coming up to 5 years now. So, yeah.
It's interesting you're saying you've got passion, and that passion for sales, really. So most of people, when they talk about sales, it's not a passionate word that they have, is it? It's more of a cringing word. I think when people think about sales, it's like those double glazing people and they're knocking at your door and then forcing you to sign some, document that you're never going to be able to live and pay until the end of your life.
No, absolutely. And the interesting thing is my journey into sales. In fact, I had a conversation with the director of the company I was going into, and we were sort of looking at what my role was going to be. And I actually said, just not sales, anything but sales. I hate sales. I'm not good at sales. And I actually I still stand by the fact that I hate sales, in the sense that exactly that traditional form of the word sales. But when you change the narrative and reframe the way that you look at sales, and you do view it as building a relationship with a customer, it's a very different thing. And actually, it's really amazing to have those moments with people where you see that light bulb sort of go off, where they think, if I actually stop trying to sell something and just have a human interaction with somebody, it's much more enjoyable, and it can actually drive much better results.
And it's all about listening to the customer's needs, right?
Absolutely.
What you want, and actually, let me just show you, perhaps that'd be something else. So there's a real relationship in everything that happened.
Absolutely. And there's a great story that I heard a while back. It's told by somebody called Drayton Bird, who I think he's in his 80s now, but back in the 60s and 70s, They had the title in the US for the most successful car salesman in the US, and people were awarded this title. And when the winner was asked what his secret was, he said, most car salespeople, when somebody walks into the showroom, they're thinking, how can I make sure that I sell this person a car, that they leave with a car today? And he said, and my secret is that I'm thinking, how do I make absolutely sure that when this person wants to buy their next car, they're coming to me? And I think that is a really clear way to show the difference between that traditional double glazing version of sales and what I love about sales is it's all about investing in relationships rather than transactions and making sure that you are listening. I am much more likely to go back to somebody who has said to me, do you know what, I don't think that's going to suit you. Now is not the time for you to buy that, or not try and upsell something to me because they want to improve the commission that they're making. Long term, they will make more money off me than short term a win.
And it's all about loyalty, right? What you're doing right for the customers, you're doing it right for the business, and it's all about ethics as well, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But I think the other thing that is so often overlooked is all the departments within a business working towards that same piece and putting the customer at the center of it. And I think I talk to businesses so often who they might want to discuss with me from a sales and marketing perspective, and they'll be quite surprised when I start talking to them about their HR and, you know, what is your approach to recruitment and retention? What is your approach to culture? How are your internal comms, you know, from an HR side, or your compliance team? How aligned with sales are they? Do they work together? Because I had a perfect example with a client who there was one member of the compliance team was so passionate about the customer experience but understood that compliance created hurdles with that. You know, there are some things that you can't shift. And I think when you can create that cohesion between departments, it's not about trying to achieve the impossible or create a situation that is all about the customer and not about the business. It's about the different departments saying, okay, look, here's the issues, here's the stumbling blocks that we have. Let's all work together with one common goal, the customer. Every single business is selling something. That is what business is. And if you can prioritize that customer and that sale in your strategy and the departmental strategies so that everything's working together, that is then, you know, really important. And it feeds back again to sort of that ethics and culture of a business. Make sure that the customer is at the very center of that.
I know. That's the key of everything, right?
Absolutely.
It just seems so simple, but very often you see sales and CX, for example, being two separate departments, and they're not, you know, they're not interconnecting, which, you know, that's kind of one big gap, isn't it, in a business?
Well, I think it's really interesting because I think there's almost three terms that are quite often interchangeable that need to be defined. There's customer service, customer journey, and customer experience. Customer service is a department quite often. You know, it's how quickly can we deal with issues, complaints, questions, and that is a department, a very important department, but it's part of the customer experience, and that's one function.
It's very transactional, isn't it? That's
yes, exactly. You know, you've got they have KPIs, you've got ticket numbers, how quickly do we solve a ticket, and it's a really important function. You've also then got customer journey, and that's actually a process. You know, that you can put that in a process map. It's very black and white. Do they do this? Yes, no, and it goes to a different, you know, and you can draw up a very clear process map. Your customer experience is probably the least transactional of the three, and actually it's about how do we, if we take that customer journey, how are we moving our customer from each step of the process to the next in a way that is right for the business and for that customer. And I think quite often that's where, I mean, if you were to Google best customer experience businesses, you will get a lot of results that are all about the customer service department.
Yes.
And that to me is a real differentiation that's often missed. I'm not just talking about how quickly they can process my return if I don't like my product or something. It's every single touch point, how are they making me feel, and how are they taking me on that journey? And I think that is where, they are seen as separate functions if we look at it from a customer service perspective or a process map perspective. But actually, if we look at it properly, they are one and the same. A sale cannot exist without creating an experience, and that is the customer's experience. So the sale can't exist without. So there is no gap to be bridged. There's actually just no gap. They are one and the same.
They connect. There isn't. There isn't a gap. That's one can't be without the other.
Exactly.
And again, without the customers in mind in the middle, that's not a good way to do it.
It's not, but it's so hard actually when you're in a business to take that step back and look at it like a customer. For example, immediately you've got unconscious bias coming into play when you're in a business, because the ins and outs of that business. And so to be able to actually look at it properly as a customer sees your business and really understand what you can do for that customer, where the gaps might be, what the leaky bucket areas are. It's really difficult to do for businesses, and when you're just trying to manage the day to day and the curveballs and firefight and all of that. How often do business leaders and anybody really within the business have a chance to go, okay, hold on a second, let's just all take a nice step back and think about the customer. It requires a lot of discipline.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that consistency word, which you want in a business, that consistently delivering that amazing customer experience, is the hardest bit of all, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, and that in itself is one of the big mistakes a lot of businesses can make, particularly businesses going through a great growth phase or a startup business. You can become really focused on the customer at the start, and you provide this phenomenal customer experience, so personalized, but you have to build your brand on a sustainable customer experience. If your business is offering something that is only going to be realistic for a very small number of customers, you are going to actually annoy those customers far more down the line when you physically can't offer that service anymore. So, and again, it comes back to understanding the customer and being clear with communication. So I hear so many businesses, for example, nervous about automating communication. So they're either trying to do it all really personally, or they think, we won't do that because they don't want to be automated. They don't want to receive something automated. As a customer, I'd rather you gave me quick, clear communication than you tried to make it really personal, couldn't cope, and so I didn't hear anything. Actually, just giving something, and that's a sustainable form of customer experience. So building for the long term and making sure you're not sort of creating foundations of business that are not sustainable as you grow is really important.
And I think that comes to retention versus acquisition as well, isn't it? I mean, customer loyalty is that's what will keep your business going, right? Yeah. And then you see a lot of business just going for the next customers and going for the next customers, and they spend more time and effort and everything else in that. But really, the key of every business is that retention, and that's loyalty piece, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's so true, and you're absolutely right. And I don't know, sometimes I feel like, is it more fashionable for businesses to be focusing on new clients? Because, I work with so many clients where they're sort of like, we've got to get new clients. And the reality is, acquiring a new client on average costs 7 times more than keeping an existing client. So when you kind of look at that purely on a numbers basis, if you're not too bothered about customer experience and you sort of view that as a bit of, I know some business leaders sort of think, well, that's a bit emotive and maybe a bit fluffy. Right. I don't know.
Intangible.
Yeah. Just let's make it about numbers. The cost of focusing on new customers over existing customers it's huge. That's 700%. So it really is important. But also, by very definition, a company can't really grow without obtaining new clients and retaining its existing clients. The two have to go. Otherwise, it is literally like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in it.
True.
And that is just that's really hard work to keep maintaining. And so, the cost of investing in your existing clients and creating that loyalty and that retention, of course, yes, there are costs that come with that. Better, depending on the business, it might be quality of supplies, tech, training of staff, it could be all sorts of different things. But the ROI on those costs is huge. You're looking at NPS, customer lifetime value, ESAT as well. Your employees are actually going to have a much better time if they feel like they're adding value. And it might be completely
trained.
If they're properly trained, exactly. If they're not having to deal with poor customer experience and complaints all the time. And with that, and again, it goes back to where does HR play a role in customer experience? If I've got a high ESAT, I've got better retention within my employers, which I'm then got better experience within my teams to know what works for my customer best and for my business. How can I gel those together and create that mutual interaction of value add between the two over a period of time? So, it's not just a case of, retention means I've got a lovely loyal customer base. It features into a lot of different areas, and the ROI is huge.
Oh, absolutely. And then you can really measure it. That's the thing, I think.
Exactly.
And I think, we that intangible. When you talk about sales always is a lot more tangible because you see the ROI, you see the measurement, you see the, what the figures here and what was it before, you can see, whereas the customer experience is always a little bit more difficult to explain how this is going to make your customers feel happy and your sales go up, right? And that's
Absolutely.
kind of the two.
And you can't measure, exactly as you say, you can't measure your customers' happiness, but you can measure it in terms of, their customer lifetime value. If they're staying with you and they're spending money, you've got a low churn rate, that is you measuring customer experience. And, it does really matter. It's amazing how when businesses are often looking at sales performance, they will sort of go, right, we've got to improve. And they'll look at all of this in a very quantitative way. We've got to improve these numbers. And it's at that moment, we talk about finding the opportunities to take a step back. It's at that moment you want to bring, your teams into a room and say, okay, let's remove all of the quantitative stuff. Let's just talk about the people that, what are we trying to do? Who are we trying to do that for? And I don't mean they are 50 to 70 living
the avatar
or whatever. We're not demographics. We're not talking about they have a dog called Baloo. We're talking about how do they feel?
Yes.
How are they feeling before you transact, before they come to you? What do you need to make them feel? And in order to transact with you, and how do you want them to feel afterwards? Let's really dig into what are their frustrations, what are their wants, what are their needs, and what is within our realm of possible as a business to support that. So what are we trying to do? Who are we trying to do it for? And how do we do it best for that customer? Not just a how do we do it best, but let's remember who are we trying to talk to? Who are we trying to talk? Because that will be different to other businesses. And it's at that moment when you're looking at all the numbers, do that bit, with your team and take that step back and go, let's make it about the customer again. Because, you mentioned earlier about how it's actually quite simple. And I think it's one of the biggest issues is it's often so overcomplicated.
Right.
And and we think, we've got to come up with this amazing solution, or we've got to find a way to pretend that that's not happening to our customer. Actually, don't underestimate your customer. They probably know anyway. And they'd really appreciate that trust and that openness. Say, look, we know something's not working. Can you help us? Because you are who matters. Businesses don't want to do that because I think they think it makes them look like they don't really know, or
what they do.
Position of weakness or something. that actually, if a business turned around to me and said, I can tell that this isn't working, you know, what would you like us to do differently? We can't promise we'll do it, because it might not be something that we can do, but we can take it on board and do our best. You know, and that level of honesty is something you don't see very often at all.
Oh, well, I mean, trust is key, though. Every relationship, we come back to that word that we started with, relationship. If you've got no trust, you've got no relationships. And so you've given a you know, some kind of really juicy kind of kickstart on if you're starting looking at, if you want to really start looking at your sales process and what, you know, how to look at it ever different ways. I believe you and I are going to be back in the room together towards the end of the month. So 28th of January. And then, so actually, if you're listening to the podcast and you're not too sure how or where to go and how to go about it, why don't you come and see us?
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about the workshop.
Yeah, so we are doing a workshop, really deep diving into what we've been talking about. You know, I think it's, and I think most people can listen to this. I'm not saying anything that people don't know. It's not, you know, I'd love to suddenly come onto this podcast and change the world. But the reality is, you know, this is stuff that all business leaders, and actually a lot of businesses will go, yeah, we do that. We do put the customer first. And I think if you are somebody that doesn't quite know how to, or really believes that you do, you can benefit from coming along, because it's going to be about having that conversation, encouraging a different perspective, looking at things differently, but also then making that very practical, giving tangible exercises to go away, and frameworks and matrix and all sorts of different tools to use with your teams to really create that focus. And on top of that, it's also then aligning that to business goals, KPIs. You know, I understand that businesses have to report on those sorts of things to somebody, whether it's a board or shareholders or, you know, just your CEO, whatever it might be. You have to have those results. And so we don't want it to be a case of CX is that intangible. Let's make it tangible, and let's really teach people how to do that, because it benefits everybody. It benefits the customer, it benefits the business. We all win. So that's exactly what the workshop's all about.
Okay, so CX as your secret sales strategy, right?
Exactly that. And you know, it sounds, one thing I will absolutely, cards on the table, it is about being quite strategic with how you take your customers' feelings and make them work so that you sell more. And in the cold, that is what sales is. But, you know, if you are going to improve your customer's life by doing that, then it's not a bad thing. But we do have to be strategic in the way that we do it for everybody's sake.
And generally consciously doing the right thing. I think that's what we forget as well. Or, you know, firefighting, there's probably a lot more smaller businesses on the island, and they're trying to do everything. And so if you're not strategic on your plan, your business as a whole, that's when, you know, that consistency on the CX just goes.
Exactly. And it goes right back to, you know, that car salesman in the US. Exactly. You know, it's about saying, actually, I'm going to focus on making sure that you come back to me for every car you ever want to buy, rather than focusing on just this one car. And if that means that you say no to a customer, whether it's about the whole transaction or a part of the transaction, you know, a part of the service, and it's whether you're offering a product or a service or whatever it might be, if you understand, if you really listen to the client, really understand what they want and build that relationship and invest in that relationship, then long term you're going to make a lot more money than you would in that immediate short term.
Well, this is just fabulous. I'm so excited. I'm just really, really excited about this workshop.
Me too.
And it's going to be, so Tuesday the 28th of January. If you want to come and book, I will put the link in it, but we've got a brand new shiny website with jcxalliance.com. So if you want to go and have a look on the website there as well. And Cassidy, where can people find you if they want to find you?
Usual, LinkedIn is probably the best. I think that's the best area. I mean, I say that, you go onto my LinkedIn, you might think, is she still alive? I'm not sure, because I'm very much a do as I say, not as I do type character. But no, LinkedIn, Cassidy Mason, or the website Cassidy Mason Consulting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent. Or come on the 28th.
Or come on the 28th, exactly. And I think, yeah, the sooner you book, I think, is it...
Yes, there's early birds as
well.
well. There you see the sales bit coming in. Yeah, there's early birds for those who are listening very early on this podcast.
Absolutely.
And then we'll look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much for sharing your passion. I mean, you can't see her face, but that passion on her, you can feel it on your smile and how you talk about it. It's amazing.
I know. I said to my husband this morning, I said, I'm really worried that I'm just going to get carried away and talk too much, because that is my biggest problem. I get too excited and passionate about it.
Well, so if you want to listen to more, yeah, she's got a lot more to say.
Yeah.
Come on the 28th, and we'll see you all very soon. Bye for now. Thank you for joining the Shine on CX show.
Thanks, Claire.
The Shine on CX show with Claire Boscq, illuminating the path to exceptional customer service.